track record, especially when we go ahead and look at, like you said, that prize match tonight, pretty much of Curse Academy versus To Be Determined. Curse Academy right now sitting pretty at 7-2, whereas To Be Determined is sitting at 8-1. They've only been defeated in a single match in this tournament, losing out to Denial Esports.
Yeah, and Curse Academy is nothing to wave your finger at either. That's a very good team right there. And if there's anyone to take down to be determined again, I think it might be Curse Academy that might be able to pull that win out against them. But looking on the other side, Complexity is also one of those teams that is leading the MCS right now. The only loss they have was against To Be Determined, so we might actually see a little bit of that triangle there, where To Be Determined can beat Complexity, Complexity beats Denial, Denial beats To Be Determined. So we have that little triangle of some of the top teams over there. But let's see how Curse Academy decide to work themselves into that triangle and maybe make it a. It might be a square, it might be a pyramid sort of thing. We'll see how they work that out.
Yeah, we will have to see. In the meantime, though, we are just working on getting into this lobby. It looks like we are just about ready. But according to what I'm being told in chat, RXG is gone, so we will actually not see Reality Check Gaming facing off against Team Tower Dive TV tonight at the last slot.
Ooh, yeah, I heard about the reality check gaming thing. That's pretty unfortunate for them. So I don't know. It's too late in the season to get another team to play for them. How the same thing happened with Infinite Odd. They came into the MCS after replacing Exertus Zeal, but that was I think 1 or 2 weeks ago. It probably was last week or so. But at the same time, it's too late in the season right now to get someone to replace Reality Check Gaming because they'll probably wouldn't be able to actually get into the playoffs even if they won every game from then on out. So we'll have to worry about that later, however, as we are in some of the picks and ban phases of this game. Caitlyn and Thresh, the first couple bans of this game, both pretty strong champions, I have to say. Caitlyn is a lane bully, and in the late game, she's got a lot of range. She can have a very good time positioning herself in late game team fights, whereas she doesn't do as much damage as Vayne, but she can stay farther away from those big damage dealers. So that's something that really benefits her out. But Caitlyn usually picked because of her really dominating lane performance, but I'm also seeing Zed and Twisted Fate banned out as well.
Yeah, no real surprise coming from the Zed and Twisted Fate band. Zed, of course, he's got that really hard backline dive, can pretty much latch on any AD carry and just come out with a full combo, that ultimate ticking, and nearly take him from full to zero in absolutely no time at all. Twisted Fate, though, he's got that global control. Nobody wants to deal with him once he hits 6. Nobody wants to have him running around to the other lanes and causing havoc, so no real surprise there. And last but not least, we've got Elise and Ari being banned out.
Yeah, Elise and Ari also pretty strong champions, and I'm not too familiar with who this new Infinite Odds lineup is very proficient with, but I can only guess that one of them plays Ari very, very well. So that's probably going to be more of a target ban because normally we don't see Ari as one of those let's ban this champion because she's extremely strong and one of the top bans, like someone like such as Twisted Fate or Thresh would be. Whereas Ari is left for players that can play Ari really, really well. And I know a couple of people do like that. Pekingese is one who really likes playing Ari and is really good at that as well. So Ari, very good targeted ban right there. But taking a look at the Elise ban, Elise is a very strong champion because you can basically play her wherever you want. You can play her in the top lane, mid lane. Arthalon really likes Elise mid, and so a couple of other people have started doing that as well. You can play Elise in the jungle, and there was a short spike in support Elise. It still works. I think people just value Elise in the top lane or jungle a little bit more. So if you can get your hands on Elise in the first place, I think she's more valuable in the top mid or jungle spots than the support. So we're not really seeing that as often, but it's still viable.
Absolutely viable, and of course coming out with some of that percentage-based damage that she's got going on in her kit is just absolutely phenomenal. And of course she falls into line sort of in the same niche that Zed does, in the fact that she's got a lot of that backline dive coming up with her repel. The problem is that she recently sustained some changes, and if she had been picked, I would have been really interested to see how she would have been played in this kind of level.
And it looks like Geek Desu, aka Geek Gone Mad, as some people know him, have picked up Renekton so far, and that's a very strong champion. We've seen him picked so many times in the MCS, very few bans against Renekton, and the only times we ever really see that are times where we have Mega Zero. It's being banned out against Mega Zero because we know his Renekton is very strong, but Geek Desu is nothing to laugh at in terms of his Renekton either, so I'm pretty excited to see that pick up, and I'm glad they actually got that in their lineup, so it's going to help them out a little bit, as well as the support Zyra pick, which has also grown in popularity recently because people realize, guys, Stranglethorns is an amazing counter initiate, or it's even a great follow-up initiate. Unfortunately, the blue team Infinite Odds, they have picked up Zac, so you can't get that synergy with the Zac Zyra, and they've also picked up Twitch either, and Twitch Zyra is also one of those big lanes we see. And since they can't get Twitch, I think we might be seeing Tempest pick up a Vayne as their AD carry to go along with Zyra. Those two synergize really well. If Zyra can land a snare, then Vayne can easily land all 3 procs of Silver Bolts, and that's a very effective trade in her favor. So that's something we got to watch out for as well.
Yeah, both teams right now are gearing up towards an AoE comp, which is going to be really interesting to see. But more importantly, we've actually got Ashe locked in to go ahead and come out of the gate with that Zyra, Renekton, and Nasus combination. Now, I'm really curious to see what's going to be going on, simply because right now it looks like Infinite Odds is going for an AoE comp. They've got Lissandra locked in, they've got Rumble, they've got Zac and Twitch, of course, and all that's pending right now is really the support, unless they're going to be going with a Lissandra support, which I don't really see happening. But all in all, they've got a really solid engage in AoE comp, whereas Tempest right now, they've got a little bit of disengage coming out from both the Crystal Arrow from Ashe as well as the Stranglethorns from Zyra, but with that Nasus and Renekton combo, they're looking at a lot of heavy AoE damage both on objectives like Dragon and Baron as well as in team fights.
Yeah, that's one thing that we've seen coming out from the two brothers over there. The Nasus Renekton combo, very devastating in teamfights if they can stay in the middle of the teamfight for long enough, especially when one or even both of them pick up a Sunfire Cape. You just have stacking magic damage all over the place when they activate their ultimates. Not only giving them a burst of health, but as we've been talking about, it does damage in an AoE around them, and it's a pretty high amount of damage as well, so that's something to watch out for in terms of their teamfight. And as you said before, Ashe, very great initiation on her enchanted crystal arrow. That's something that we really like to see. However, looking towards the blue team Infinite Odds, they picked up Nami, and Nami could work here. I was also sort of expecting a Janna pick a little bit, just to try to get Renekton, get Nasus away from whoever is getting initiated on, because if you wait out those two ultimates, then you've almost basically just won the team fight right there. There's not as much follow-up damage, and that's really going to be a big staple of the team fight coming out from Team Tempest. So the Nami pick still works because Nami has a great disengage, which is why I expected, either Nami or Janna. Those are very good picks for this sort of comp, and it looks like Orianna is going to be the last pick for Team Tempest. We don't really have the standard Wombo combo where there's someone who has a giant gap closer like Zac or like Jarvan to go in and then use the Orianna Shockwave to basically get that big AoE. But at the same time, they do have Renekton, who's got a pretty cool gap closer as well as his own stuns. And once again, if you can keep people inside of the range of Renekton and Nasus's ultimates, then that is pretty huge.
This is going to be really great to see when we actually get into this game. I'm so excited to see the team fights right now, just because, like you were pointing out, yes, Nami has an amazing disengage, and her ultimate not only has that immense slow on it, but it also speeds up her team as she manages to hit themselves with it as well. Whereas a purple team right now, Tempest, they managed to lock in that Orianna. Baby Zeus is going to be rocking that right now. Orianna absolutely devastating these kind of AoE comps, and it's all going to be dependent really on Infinite Odds positioning to see how well these team fights work.
Yeah, and looking now that the we're in the 3-minute delay, we can also see some of the summoner spells. Just checking those around the map. And do you see anything odd in the summoner spells?
Let's go ahead and take a look right now. We've actually got a heal being picked up on Zyra. That's not as unusual as you would actually think it is, simply because as we've seen Nami and Janna more in MCS specifically, those two champions have actually been picking up heal quite a bit when it comes to supporting. So I'm not too surprised to see it picked up on Zyra. I can kind of understand why, just because, you wouldn't be expecting to see Ignite and Lane coming out from Twitch simply because of all the AoE and all the crowd control coming out from Tempest, especially between both that Zyra and Ashe. So it makes sense to pick up heal. I would have kind of liked to see an exhaust just because I think it kind of would have been invaluable on Twitch at this point if we do get into the team fight phase.
And not only the team fight phase, but a lot of people are actually really just underestimating the amount of damage Twitch does in lane as well. I've seen a lot of games in the MCS where people think, all right, let's take a 2v1 versus Twitch, and it just actually works out in the Twitch's favor, which is really something that a lot of teams aren't expecting. But it looks like pretty soon we're going to jump into a commercial break. But in the meantime, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsors: iBuyPower, Fatality Gaming Gear, and Razer Academy. Now, you guys make sure that you follow us at MCS Esports, tweet at us there, and on top of that, you can also find out whatever you want at www.mcsesports.com, and you can type in /tips afterwards to leave tips for the casters, or if you want to increase the prize pool for these great teams, then you can leave a tip for the prize pool as well. But in the meantime, let's go into a commercial break. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mobafire Challenger Series. And it looks like we are heading into this game just stuck at the loading screen for a little bit. And as we mentioned before, not too much differentiation on those summoner spells. Like we said before, the heal on Zyra going to help sort of bait out those engagements, but I think the exhaust might have worked a little bit better, but there's always the problem of your Zyra and you don't really have too many gap closers, and you're also not very tanky. So the fact you're not really going to be able to get near Twitch all that much, but at the same time you could be using the exhaust on someone like Rumble, who also puts out a ton of damage if you leave him unchecked throughout a team fight. So that would also be another possibility. But in the meantime, we have everyone's favorite thing in the world, a pause.
Oh man, the best of times, Azaraki. But it looks like we're gonna go ahead and unpause, so we're just real quick gonna go ahead and jump right to live so we don't miss any of the action. we're going to go ahead and get up into this game, line up all of the summoners for those laning phases, and get right into it. And it looks like we've got fairly standard buys coming out from everybody. No real surprises here yet.
Yeah, we don't really see anything quite different, and I know that a couple of junglers, not specifically these two, because Nasus and Zac are going to be more tanky-oriented junglers, so they're not going to be starting Doran's Blade, which we've actually seen on a couple of junglers. I know Wappa ran that on Lee Sin earlier, and we also saw Elise being played with a Doran's Blade, but I'm Pobelter going to be face-checking this bush. There is an Orianna ball in it. It looks like no one is going to try to capitalize on that. Tempest is just going to stand there and take pride in the fact that they saw the engagement, but it looks like the rest of Infinite Oz, they're going around the long way.
They got a few wards put out right now, just wanting to go ahead and keep an eye on the enemy team. Meanwhile, it looks like Tempest is actually going to be invading, so counter invades going on right now. They are going to get spotted out by that ward as they go into the blue buff.
Yeah, and we're gonna see, your general buff exchange right here, unless Infinite Odds actually wants to go back to their own jungle, because I do believe they know that Tempest are in their jungle, but we might just want to see both teams go for that little split. But no, it looks like Team Tempest is the ones that are actually going to go back into this. Davison has to be careful walking into the bush.
And there we go. There is a jump down. Devasion coming out with the flash. He is going to go down the Ignite, scoring the kill for Rumble for the first blood. Exhaust down on Desu right now. He's taking quite the beating. Pobelter coming in here trying to get out as much damage as he possibly can. And there we go. The Orianna ball coming out. The damage is coming down from Twitch, and that will be a kill for Nami as Body Drop picks that up for a 2-for-0 exchange.
And one of the things that made that a 2-for-0 exchange instead of a 1-for-0 was the fact that Tempest thought they were safe inside the bush. They thought, alright, well, they can't see us, they can't target us, we're all good here. But there was actually an Explorer ward that had run out right as the fight ended. So that's a pretty good timing right there to make sure that the ward stays throughout the fight, and they actually picked up the second kill because of it. But taking a look at what's happening right now, it looks like both teams are going to be going for a lane swap, and everything's going to go back to normal. We're going to have 2v2 and a 1v1 in the bottom lane. So other than the fact that top and bottom have switched, that's basically it. So we're not really going to be able to see those early tower pushes that a lot of people like to do with lane swaps.
I love seeing the fact that we've got the counter lane swap going on, just because, yeah, they're not going to be able to get that early tower down. They can't go for that early map pressure, and they can't try and give really anybody the advantage here. So Desu obviously not in the greatest position after his laning partner, or opponent rather, got first blood, and he's going to kind of get bullied around here, or so I would assume coming into this matchup, that he's going to have some problems. Yeah, there we go. There's the early level 2 going down. Meanwhile, in the top lane, they're just going to be duking it out. Nobody really wants to get into that 2v1 situation right now.
And Geek Desu really has to be careful laning against iKennyU on Rumble. iKenny plays a pretty good Rumble, and right now he's bullying quite a bit. Flamespitter doing a very good job. He's managing it with the danger zone as well, which makes it do more damage if you're staying there. And that's something that could possibly work out well in his favor while the lane goes on. And at this point, he also has the experience advantage ahead of Geek Desu.
Meanwhile, in the top lane, we did have that flash forced out by Body Drop and Otter as they managed to come in there, land that Aqua Prison. Incredibly slow moving just skill shot. I really do hate trying to land that Aqua Prison, but wonderfully done on the part of that Nami. Getting that flash out early enough is really going to open up the top lane to some nice ganks.
Something a lot of people like to actually do with Nami, because the Aqua Prison is so hard to land, is start off with the Tidecaller's Blessing, and that's basically going to allow you or your Twitch's auto attacks to slow, and that just makes it a little bit easier to land that Aqua Prison, which in turn gets out more damage to whoever you actually land that on. So that was something that was actually a possibility right there, because I saw that Body Drop had taken Aqua Prison first, and then he took the Tidecaller's Blessing second, so waiting for the level 3 to get ebb and flow. And that's really justified. I mean, they're not taking enough harass to constitute taking an early ebb and flow. They don't need the heals, and the poking is not as effective as just simply landing that slow to land the Aqua Prison, to land, half someone's health and damage.
Twitch is doing exactly what he wants to do up in this lane right now. He's being an absolute bully. He's putting in as much DPS as he possibly can into this Ashe, and just making her really regret being in this lane in general. So unfortunately right now, it looks like Ashe is not in the best position. Gonna lose out on quite a bit of CS here. Hopefully Otter can go ahead and keep up that lead and go ahead and pull out ahead.
Yeah, and Twitch is a really good champion to do that with, and unfortunately Ashe doesn't really have too much power over these guys. She does have quite a bit of poke with her passive, allowing her to crit as well as volley, but if Body Drop and Otter can land a good initiation, then they can just, force that all to none. And on top of that, Body Drop on Nami also has some pretty good sustain, and Zyra doesn't really have any sustain that she can put on either herself or Ashe. So it looks like in the early gaming phase, we have a lead for the infinite odds top lane, in this case, with the AD carry support combo. Now, when it comes to late game, then it's going to be odd because Twitch also scales really, really well into the late game, but whether or not Zephyx can do a good job on Ashe is going to be dependent on how well he can kite around, because that is really what makes Ashe good.
Oh, and here we go. Zac coming in for the gank. The Aqua Prison going down. There we go. There is going to be the snare coming out from Zyra, but unfortunately that exhaust down on Ashe will go ahead and seal her fate as Otter picks up the first kill in that top lane.
And there we go, 3-0 advantage already for Infinite Oz. They're looking pretty strong in this game right now. DJ Lambo, I know he loves his Zac, and he's showing that right now. He knows a lot of ways to initiate, and a lot of people don't know quite the range of Zac's E quite yet, and it does scale on level, so the more you level it up, the longer range it gets, and that's why most people actually max it on Zac, and it just makes his ganks so incredibly powerful. And how do you ward against that? You have to ward all the way deep into the enemy team's try, and at that point you risk getting caught out, and you're also using one ward up there, so you still have to use one on your own try, you still have to use one near the Baron area. It's really hard to ward against a Zac, and I like to see that DJ Lambo is playing the champion really well.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the mid lane right now. Orianna and Lissandra, we saw earlier in the game Lissandra was having a lot of problems CSing in that mid lane, just getting absolutely bullied out by Orianna. But now the tides have kind of turned. Lissandra's really picking up the CS right now, getting in there and starting to be the aggressor in this lane. So that looks to be changing very quickly now that she's going to go ahead and have access to her ultimate. Meanwhile, in the top lane, it looks like Lambo's back for another gank. That ultimate coming out, and unfortunately Ashe only level 4 is going to immediately fall. Otter picking up that kill. Will he get the double? It looks like he's going to go ahead and chase down on Francis, but Body Drop going to go ahead and pick that up with the auto attack.
We have a 2-0 Twitch and a 2-0 Nami. This is going to be a fairly scary top lane over here. I was about to say bot lane, but they are playing top of this game, where Twitch is going to get a really, really early Blade of the Ruined King, and that just increases his all-in power by such a huge amount. Not only is he getting the flat-out damage from it, he's also getting the attack speed and the lifesteal, and on top of that, the active, which you can never forget about when you're talking about Blade of the Ruined King. It really helps his chasing power, and even though Ashe is a kite master, with the Blade of the Ruined King, Otter stands a chance in terms of that kite battle, so he can now win the engagements. He can then win the kite battle when he gets the Blade of the Ruined King. So at this point, Zephyx and Davison are going to have to play pretty passively, and unfortunately for Zyra, that doesn't really work too well, because as a passive Zyra, you can throw out snares to make sure that they don't jump on Zephyx, but you don't. Most of Zyra's passive is just, or most of Zyra's abilities are just about poking down, they're about securing kills, and when they're this far behind, it's just going to be really hard for them to do that.
It's not going to be easy come the mid game either. You also have to bear in mind the fact that once Ashe hits 6, she's pretty much going to be good for her ultimate. Her damage isn't going to be quite as consistent as it is both in the early and the late game. So while she's got this really great scaling later on, she doesn't have it right now. So she's certainly going to have some problems, especially with Twitch being 2-0 right now. Really, all she needs to do is concentrate on farming. Zephyx right now just going to want to go ahead and CS in this lane.
So we're seeing right now that Rumble is having a fairly good time against Geek Daesu down in the bot lane, and one thing that really helps him with that is just the fact that Geek Daesu is playing Renekton, and Renekton is a very melee-reliant champion. All of his skills are either in melee range or force him to get in melee range. For instance, the only one that isn't melee is actually his Slice and Dice, which is a dash, so whenever he uses it, he has to get into melee range in order to put out that damage or whatnot, and when you're in melee range, Rumble can put down a lot of damage with Flame Spitter, and then use Harpoons to keep you in Flame Spitter for as long as possible, so that's really why that matchup is sort of going to Kenny Yu down in this bot lane, and he's probably just going to keep trying to bully out Geek Daesu, but at the same time, Geek is doing a really good job of farming and not taking too much damage, so he's ahead.
And in the mid lane, we've got a gank going down. DJ Lambo coming in here. Baby Zeus forced to flash out, but we've got the Zyra ultimate going down, and that is going to be the end of Baby Zeus. The shield going down, but Zac picking up that kill.
And Lissandra, you really, really need to watch out after she hits level 6. There is so much burst damage there, and even though if she can't kill you in the initial burst of QWE, or probably in this case, EWQ, and then ulti, once the ulti wears off, then her Q's probably going to be back up, so that's just even more burst damage on top of that. So you can't just take into account the initial burst in all of her kit, but she also has some pretty good fighting power after that ultimate wears off. And on top of that, you can't really do anything while she ultimates you. Obviously, it's a stun, so that's going to be something that's pretty hard to counter there, and looks like once again we do have a pause, so that makes 2 today in only 1 game. It looks like we might be approaching the record.
Yeah, no kidding, but it looks like Francis is disconnected. We've gone ahead and gotten a couple complaints about lag, but right now we saw that kill in mid lane open up this dragon right now to infinite odds. They're looking at getting a little more global presence by taking those objectives and furthering their gold lead. It is 6-0 right now at only 10 minutes into the game. They've got about a little bit over 4,000 gold up on Team Tempest right now, and with this dragon, they're going to be hitting a 5K mark very early.
Yes, and really, that dragon completely uncontested. You know, they just took out the mid laner Baby Zeus. Francis is going to have to stop the minion wave from pushing the mid tower, and at this point, you know, Zac has no problem tanking dragon, and on top of that, Zac has a lot of damage, Lissandra has a lot of damage. They're not really going to have too much of a problem there, and even if they do, IKennyU can easily follow up with his amount of damage as well as Equalizer to turn the fight if they try to go for it. And even with Renekton and Nasus, they're both level 6, they both have quite a bit of power. It's still not really going to be enough to contest these 3 champions.
And we'll have to see what happens now. The pause is still going on, just getting some ready checks going down, and it looks like we may see this ending here momentarily. So as this gets out, we're just going to go ahead and jump to live real quick and then get on with this little bit of dragon shenanigans. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Divasion actually forced to flash out of the Aqua Prison coming out from body drop.
And IKennyU is actually going to be following up anyway, so that's just putting more damage. They'll be able to take it quicker. And it looks at this point they are about, I would say that is a 5 point something K gold, 4 point something K gold. Wow, I'm not usually this bad at math,
today.
I swear.
Good job, good job. I'm proud of you. So just about 5K gold now, going over to infinite odds. But in the top lane, we've got the ultimate coming out, the tsunami going down, the crystalline arrow coming out from Ashe, and they're actually going to manage to take down Otter there. But now Zevix trying to get on it to body drop. Francis coming in here to help. The Wither is going to go ahead and go down. The Aqua Prison coming out. Will they get the kill? No! Oh, body drop not managing to land that kill as Orianna comes in with a last minute shield.
And at that point, it's basically they just got baited by the ultimate from Ashe, and that's something you never want to do, is take an engagement where Ashe has her ultimate up, and on top of that has the mana for it. And unfortunately, they did just that, and they just gave up 2 kills in the top lane because of it. DJ Lambo going to try to just clear this mini wave, seeing if he can do any damage to Francis, just to make sure that they don't take this tower in the top lane. But looking around the map at some of the item builds, we already see the fact that DJ Lambo, he's fully completed his Spirit of the Ancient Golem, while Francis, he's only got his Spirit Stone. So that's a very large gold difference that we have right there. And there goes the Kindle Gem for Francis, so he's getting a little bit closer, but it still doesn't really compare to the full Spirit of the Ancient Golem that Zac has. And let's talk about how much amazingness that is in that jungle item. Cooldown reduction, 500 health, and on top of that you get tenacity and health and mana regen. That is a quintessential jungle item on any tank that wants to go into the jungle, so I'm not at all surprised to see it on both DJ Lambo, and coming up, Francis is going to have that as well. So right now, I do think that the blue team should try to start fighting, but in the top lane, it looks like Otter secured a kill, and, you know, maybe a little bit of a counter bait right there. Zefix didn't quite expect the damage that Twitch is able to pull off.
Really nothing short of surprising at this point. I mean, Twitch is fed. He's 3-1-3 at only 12 minutes into the game. He's in a really good spot right now. Otter's gonna have no problem being an absolute powerhouse this game. And this is kind of where packing heal on Zyra may end up being an issue later on. Despite the fact that they've got Wither coming out from Nasus, it's not really enough to stop Otter from doing that damage. It'll be interesting to see if they get the items to go ahead and have a proper response to that. But in the top lane, we've got Divasion getting down so very low from Twitch, the Aqua Prison landing on Francis, and Otter's just gonna go back to farming.
And we talk about Nami as one of those supports that can really lane with almost every AD carry there is. She's just such a great support champion. She's got engage, disengage, heals, as well as an auto attack buff to whoever you want. It be it yourself or most likely your AD carry, giving him slows, but in the bot lane, equalizer's popped.
Yeah, we've got Geek Desu using his ultimate right now. The ignites are down. Kenny forced out, and in the top lane, it looks like another kill gonna go ahead and go to Otter, and Geek Desu managing to pick up that kill with only a sliver of health left. So that health buff from his ultimate really coming in handy there to keep him alive.
It looks like they are going for the
Lambo's gonna go ahead and go in for the dive right now, but he's gonna be forced out of here from the stun. Oh, that's so unfortunate. And it looks like Desu is going to get out with just barely any health.
So Tempest have the right idea to go ahead and push down this mid lane tower. However, they need to watch out for the engage from all of the rest of Infinite Odds.
Yeah, we've got Francis coming in here, the ultimate going down, and there is the ultimate coming out from Orianna. The Crystalline Arrow isn't going to manage to hit anybody. Lissandra coming back in here. She will manage to pick up the kill down onto Nasus, and Francis now down for the count, as there's going to be a complete disengage at this point, resulting in the 1-for-0 in favor of Infinite Odds.
And they're looking pretty good right now. They have about, once again, a 5k gold lead, and that was actually much easier math for some reason. But taking a look at some of the item builds, we actually have an Abyssal Scepter rush from Lissandra, so looking to counter more towards the damage side of Tempest. And really one thing that we see on most Lissandra players is that rush to go for Zhonya's, and Zhonya's is more towards the armor side of things, and seeing as there really isn't too much armor damage that Lissandra's going to have to deal with in the early game, then she can constitute going for the Abyssal Scepter first, and on top of that, she's a champion that can easily use her E to get into the middle of a fight, ult herself, and even while she's ulted, even while she can't do anything, she's still lowering the magic resist of everyone around her. So that's something that plays into Lissandra's kit very well, and also synergizes with Zhonya's, which is most likely going to be her next pickup.
We'll have to see what happens there, but that is all around an excellent point. Now, we've seen the counter lane swap happen yet again, as now Twitch and Nami are down in the bot lane versus Ashe and Zyra again. Rumble and Renekton facing off in the top lane since that first tower has been pushed down. Tempest managing to pick that up, gaining as much map control as they possibly can. Now, it looks like up in the top lane, we've got a little bit of a skirmish going on between Desu and Rumble. Francis coming up in here to square off with DJ Lambo. The ultimate coming out, so bouncy time is down, and it looks like Lambo is just going to go ahead and get himself out of there as Rumble pops his own ultimate. Or, I'm sorry, Renekton.
A lot of ultimates were popped in that top lane, but nothing actually ended up happening. So looks like that's just going to go right back to normal, and both iKenyu and Geek Desu are looking to push the top lane out a little bit, although I'm a little bit surprised. You know, Geek Desu is spending a lot of time in the top lane, however, he's not gotten a Tiamat yet, he's not rushed for his Sunfire Cape yet, so going for the Hex Drinker, I actually want to see him, you know, just trying to team fight a little bit more with the rest of their team, trying to make plays happen in the enemy jungle, in their own jungle, and that was really something that you could play towards with Hex Drinker. And once he gets a little bit more gold, once he builds up that Sunfire Cape, he can just stay in the top lane, push the entire game, and it would really work out for him. But right now, the rest of Tempest really needs something to bring them back into this game, and if Geek Desu just stays in the top lane the entire game and not help his team out at all, then that's not really going to be the best way for Tempest to get back into it, especially when Infinite Odds can easily just send iKenyu up to the top lane to deal with Renekton. So that's going to be something quite interesting, but we do have a dragon fight possible.
There's the arrow coming out from Ashe right now, and the ultimate followed up by Lissandra. She is going to go ahead and be taken down, so Lissandra going down, and now Francis popping his ultimate. He's going to go ahead and get very low as the shockwave comes out from Orianna. Rumble picking up that double kill right now, and now Renekton is on the run as iKenyu doing his best to try and catch up, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and now Baby Zeus in a very precarious situation right here, as it looks like Nami's going to go ahead and come in and tank the tower just a little bit, picking up Otter yet another kill.
And one thing to note in that fight was actually the fact that Zephyx stole the dragon with the Ash Arrow, and even though the Ash Arrow can't actually hit neutral minion creeps or dragon or baron, the AoE damage on it can proc when she hits someone who's standing really close to the dragon, and that was really what allowed her to steal that dragon out away from Infinite Odds. So great play right there by Zephyx, and he also initiated that fight. Unfortunately, the actual team fight didn't work quite as well for them as they would have hoped, but at the same time, you know, they got the dragon, and I think one idea that might have been a little bit better for them was just saying, all right, we got the dragon, let's not actually try to full-on fight this. We have pretty good escape mechanic and we're all pretty tanky, so we could just try not to fight this as well, because Infinite Odds, even though Tempest just picked up the dragon, Infinite Odds are still very far ahead in gold, and on top of that, Tempest couldn't actually buy anything with that dragon before the fight, so even though they got a little bit more gold from the dragon, they couldn't utilize it at all.
Unfortunately, they still ended up losing out there in the end with that fight. Still, though, an amazing, amazing steal coming out from Ash in that one. Was really surprised to see that happen. You definitely don't see that every day. But now, again, these guys just going for the counter lane swap, and there we go. There's the Aqua Prison going down. Evasion getting down very low. He will end up being taken down here. The root going down, and now the exhaust is onto Zephyx. The ultimate coming out for that Ash arrow, but now Otter in a lot of pain right now. He's going to do his best to get away here, and the volley will hit. A nice flash will go ahead and get the shutdown going to Zephyx, and now Baby Zeus is in here. Oh man, body drop flashing out as Orianna comes in. A shockwave not going down quite yet, but it looks like DJ Lambo is here, and Baby Zeus is going to go ahead and go down. Francis now with his ultimate out is doing his best to get away. The Wither is down, but Ash unfortunately going to go down for the double kill, going to Lissandra, and now Francis following up shortly after for the triple kill.
And that was just another big example of chasing too far. You know, they got the kill onto Twitch, they got the kill onto Otter. That should have been good enough for them, but they said, all right, let's keep going for the team fight. We can kill body drop, but they didn't actually notice the fact that not only Pobelter, but DJ Lambo were nowhere else on the map. They were on their way down to the bot lane, and they counter-initiated that, or counter-ganked that really, really well, and it just ended up with a triple kill for Pobelter. So, unfortunately, once again, Tempest didn't make quite the best decision right there, and Pobelter comes ahead 4-1 and 7. Look, let me check. She hasn't actually gone back in quite a bit. 2,600 gold. That is enough for a needlessly large rod, and after this next minion wave, a needlessly large rod plus the Seeker's Arm Guard, so very, very close to a Zhonya's on her next back.
Oh, that fight just went so badly for Tempest. Not only did they lose out on kills, they lost out on their own blue buff and their bot lane tower, leaving the tower score at 3-0 right now in favor of Infinite Odds. This is giving them pressure all across the map right now. They've got every tier 1 tower down, and really you're going to start to see all of these invasive wards coming out. In fact, they're already out for Infinite Odds in Tempest jungle right now, and they've just got complete buff control right now. They know exactly where they are at all times, and this is going to be really detrimental to Tempest. Like, they have to be very careful and ward up their own jungle. You can see Devasion even coming out with the pinks right now.
And at this point, Tempest, they should know that they can't just win a straight-up team fight. No matter how hard they try, even under their own tower, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to win a team fight. They have to resort to catching someone out and then winning a 4v5 or winning a 4v3. They need to force something creative. They can't just play the usual team fight route that a lot of teams like to do, especially when Infinite Odds have this team. They're not only fed, but they have Lissandra, they have Zac, they have Rumble. Every single champion on Infinite Odds has good team fight, and unfortunately it looks like Francis might be the one getting caught out.
Yeah, he did manage to take that red buff, but got caught out. It looks like Desu's here to help, but Francis now forced to pop his ultimate as the Stranglethorns come out, and there's the Crystal Arrow, will manage to hit onto Penny, and he will go down, Rumble being the first casualty of this fight, and now DJ Lambo on the run right now. Will Desu manage to get him? It looks like he's going to go ahead and go in for the stun. It will land. Devasion coming in with that. Oh man, that snare is not going to land, but in the top lane, it looks like Otter has at least made a good thing out of this. They managed to take the second tier turret into top lane. He's just tower diving right now, going for that kill with his ultimate procced, but it is not going to happen. It looks like Zephyx is going to get out of there alive.
Just barely alive, and that's sort of the, I want to say, right decision on the part of Otter and Body Drop to basically take that bottom lane tower while the rest of the team was team fighting. But I think in general, the rest of Infinite Odds, those that weren't pushing the bot lane, should have been a little bit more careful and just sort of kited the fight around for a very long time. They have the champions for it. People like DJ Lambo, Zac is a pretty slippery champion. It's hard to finally catch up with him. And we also have Pobelter playing Lissandra, who is another very slippery champion with a lot of CC and a very good escape on her E. So that they could have prolonged that fight instead of just running straight in for the fight. Or alternatively, if they did have Otter and Body Drop, then they could have won it.
Oh, and in the mid lane, Baby Zeus getting caught out here. Lissandra's ultimate going down, and Pobelter is going to pick up yet another kill on a rampage.
And, well, unfortunately, it looks like Tempest once again getting caught out a little bit, which is not what they want to do to get back into this game, I have to say. At this point, 8.9k gold difference, and that was actually pretty easy since one was at 30k. That's pretty easy maths right there. But taking a look at some of the items around the map, we see, okay, Ashe, Zephyx has rushed the Infinity Edge, so that's going to give her a lot of crit and very amplify her damage quite a bit. However, she's not really going to be that kiting power until she gets the Static Shiv, or at the very least the Zeal, which is going to help quite a bit. But until then, he can't really force a big on-team fight unless he can be confident enough in his positioning, confident enough in the rest of his team peeling for him so that he can stay alive throughout the fight. Because without that extra movement speed that the Zeal or the Static Shiv gives him, he's not really going to be able to kite around as well as he would hope, and he won't have as much frontal burst damage or auto attack speed, which is also pretty integral in making sure that she can kite, because that she gets more frost shot auto attacks out. So I don't really want to see them fight more straight up team fights yet, but if they can catch someone out, once again, that's always great.
And that is why I love seeing that IE Static Shiv build coming out on Ashe, just because that initial proc of Static Shiv can actually crit, and that's one of the things that makes it so devastating damage-wise on Ashe, to get that initial proc off and just pop somebody right in the face for a huge amount of health. Even if they do have that armor, it doesn't really matter at this point, but we've finally seen the Oracles coming out on Divasion right now, clearing out their own jungle from all of those wards and just trying to keep some handle on this game and regain some kind of control and take that away from Infinite Odds.
And looking at Infinite Odds right now, they are in map control right now, although I do want to see them start pushing a little bit more. We've seen, you know, every now and again, they invade the jungle, they send one person top, couple people mid, one or two people bottom, but they haven't really gotten down in organized push yet, which is what I think they need to start ending this game a little bit faster. It looks like they're once again going for a couple more buffs. Nothing really wrong with that, but there is initiation with Ashe Hero.
Yeah, and there we go. There's the stun coming out, or the snare rather, as Kenny is caught out. Lissandra coming in with the ultimate. Zephyx getting down very low. There's a shutdown going to Renekton on Lissandra. Francis getting down very low. He will end up falling. Otter coming in here playing cleanup crew, but he is going to go down as well. Ashe managing to take him out, and now Desu coming in. Zyra taking out Nami. Man, and Lambo taking out Ashe. A double kill going to him as he manages to take out Renekton, and now the chase is on Lambo. Gonna do his best to try and take anybody he can out here. That slingshot going down, and now he's after Baby Zeus. He's gonna go ahead and get the slowdown, but it may not be enough. Is that, nope, there we go. The snare coming out from Zyra is going to go ahead and stop that, but Lambo still going ham right now, still chasing, tanky as hell, just does not care.
And going back to that team fight, even though DJ Lambo was sort of caught out of position for it, the Ashe Initiate came in onto iKennyU right after DJ Lambo used Elastic Slingshot to get over to the blue buff pit, so he was out of the fight for the first couple seconds. So in theory, Tempest had that fight. Where they went wrong was the fact that they all just sort of ran right in a line down that little choke point in the jungle, and that was a perfect place for an equalizer from Rumble, and iKennyU did a great job of landing that, and it just forced the entire team to split up at the very beginning of the fight, and at that point Otter could land damage after damage after damage on 1% at a time, because unless you have 2 or 3 people actually focusing down Twitch, then he's going to be able to stay alive, he's going to be able to lifesteal off with his Blade of the Ruined King, and he's going to be able to damage and possibly 1v2 people if they don't focus him.
And now we can see a Pobelter coming in with that ultimate onto Orianna. Zach coming in, following shortly behind. We've got the Equalizer coming out. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow will not manage to land, and now the Aqua Crystal going down onto Desu. He is going to go ahead and get knocked around by that ultimate coming out from Lambo, taking a lot of damage here. The Hexdrinker popped, and he will end up going down, and that will be a kill for Zach. And now the Stranglethorn's coming out. Kenny in a lot of trouble right here. He's going to end up going down. Zyra picking up that kill, going on a spree. Meanwhile, Twitch managing to take out Francis.
And look at the ward coverage in that fight as well. We saw just a lot of wards, but another...
no, Otter coming in, going for the shutdown on Zyra. Ashe following quickly after in a double kill, and now just life-stealing back all of those tower hits.
And once again, that long-range Zac initiation proving its point right there, and it's actually just going to dive under the tower for no apparent reason, and throwing off a couple of abilities that can't actually damage it, but at the same time, they're not really going to have any problem taking this tower. Baby Zeus going to try to do something to kill DJ Lambo, but alone he doesn't have enough damage to do so, especially with the Nami heals that are here, so they're going to be able to take this inhibitor and back off directly afterwards, maybe set up for a Baron as well. They have the map control, especially now that the inhibitor's down. They have the ward control, and they also have the item control, so that would be something that I really want to see them pick up next. If not, then they're just going to start pushing down maybe the top lane, maybe the bottom lane, but whatever they do, if they stick together as 5, they're almost unstoppable at this point.
I guess really the question right now comes down to what can Tempest do to come back in this game, because right now they are just not in a good position overall. They're down map control, they're down gold, nobody really has the kills that they need on their team, so you can see Zephyx is actually down 3 levels compared to Otter. So there are just so many problems going on right now. What do you think that Tempest can do to get back in this game?
And really, there's not really too much they can do to get back into this game. It's going to be reliant on basically infinite odds making mistakes. Now, on the other hand, Tempest needs to be able to capitalize on all those mistakes as well as they can, which unfortunately they haven't really been doing too much, and they've been forcing a little bit too many of their own mistakes, getting caught out quite a bit, which unfortunately doesn't help them out at all. So at this point, you know, every team makes mistakes, but it's how you can capitalize on those, and so far Tempest is not doing that, and at the same time, I don't really think Infinite Odds are making big enough mistakes to sort of throw the game right here. The Ash Arrow misses. Oh no, this is really bad for the side of Tempest, and Infinite Odds are going to be able to pull off this next initiation really easy now that that ultimate's down.
Oh man, that is so unfortunate right now. Otter coming in here, you can see everybody's kind of just grouping up. Zac was getting ready for that elastic slingshot over the wall before that snare came out. Body drop obviously got that oracles going on now, so they've got complete control over Tempest jungle. Kenny even coming up here, getting ready for this fight as they knock out that tier 2 tower up in the top lane. Francis coming in here. Everybody on the part of Tempest now just trying to defend. This could be the make it or break it fight of the game.
It really could, and most of it's going to ride on how well DJ Lambo can initiate this fight, and he's been doing a very good job of doing that already as well. He's got an elastic slingshot, as we know, one of the longest range initiates of the game, save for global ultimates like Twisted Fates, but I Am Pobelter getting taken down to about half health through the poke throughout the wall, and if they want to keep fighting this poke ward, they need a ward of their own, but they're going in for it.
Oh, there's the equalizer coming out, and the instantaneous burst going down onto Orianna. Pobelter getting down very low. He will end up falling here as Zyra picks up the kill, and now Francis going down as well. Zephyx will be the last to fall here, and it looks like Divasion may manage to get out of this, but that is going to be a 4-for-2 exchange. This may seal the deal on the game, but now it looks like Kenny's just going to go ahead and suicide here, running right into that fountain. Oh, well, that ended well.
No. Kenny's mindset there was, I need to tank this tower so that Otter doesn't get any tank, and I want to give him the Penta, and that was the only way he could think of doing it, but we might see an unofficial Penta, but no, not really enough CC to keep her out of there. Yeah, that's basically what Kenny was trying to do right there, was tank the tower, trying to get Otter the Penta kill. Unfortunately, Deviacin not doing a very good job of that.
I'm not exactly sure what has just gone on in this match, especially with Kenny suiciding. It's given enough time for, essentially for Zyra to go ahead and hold off this advancement onto the towers, enough time for Baby Zeus to get up and defend the inhibitors. So, while they made some great progress in terms of kills and getting that tower down, not a lot else happened aside from, of course, bot lane pushing up, and bot lane may actually manage to take out this inhibitor as well, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So now 2 inhibitors down, Infinite Odds, going to have super minions coming out of mid and bot lane. That is going to be rough.
And that is also going to be a Baron as they're looking right towards that, pinking everything up. We see 3 pink wards right around the Baron area. One's about to run out, but that doesn't really hinder them too much as they still have the entirety of the top jungle warded, except for the golems, where, you know, there isn't a ward there, but they don't really need one. They have all entrances to the Baron Cove warded. They just need one right outside of the red buff cave, possibly in that bush to make sure no one tries to steal it outright, but it looks like they're going in for it.
Oh, Pobelter here catching out Zyra, Kenny coming up as well, and they will manage to go ahead and take her out despite that Stranglethorns coming out, and that is going to be the surrender vote, 4-1 coming out on the part of Tempest. Infinite Odds going to go ahead and take home this game, and really kind of up their record. They're going to be 2-8 now.
Yeah, and that's actually going to be pretty good for them. Infinite Odds doing a very good job of getting back into this, and unfortunately, they had to inherit the win-loss rate of whoever they were up against, or whoever Exertus Zeal. So they inherited Exertus Zeal's rate at that point, and unfortunately, they weren't actually able to take that back as fast as they would like. However, this is going to help. So their score now is 3-7, and unfortunately, Tempest is now also 3-7. So they sort of evened up that gap right there. But taking a look at some of the post-game analysis, one thing I'm sort of wondering about was the fact that Nami got an own wrecker right there. Very odd item on a support, especially. It builds out of a Philostone, so some people like to take that. However, its base stats are pretty good, health, ability power, as well as health and mana regen. But at that point, it was too late in the game for active to really matter too much, to be honest. At that point, DJ Lambo was tanky enough to tank towers no matter how much he wanted. Ninja Tabi, Randuin's Omen, Spirit of the Ancient Golem, and Spear Visage. He's got a lot of health, a lot of armor. I don't really think they needed the Ohm Wrecker, but at the same time, they it didn't it didn't throw the game for them, so I guess that's all right in that case. But we will be looking towards the next game of the night, and that will be Aware Gaming versus Cognitive Gaming. And stay tuned for that. In the meantime, we're going to give shout outs to some of our sponsors. We have iBuyPower, Fatality Gaming Gear, and Razer Academy. And also, if you subscribe, you have a chance to win a Razer Black Widow Ultimate. And if you are a viewer, you also have a chance to win the Fatality headset. So make sure you stay tuned for that stuff. And in the meantime,